You are listening to Radiant Creators, a collaborative project composed of people whose passion, purpose, and dedication requires forging their own unique path of empowerment and livelihood. A radiant creator isn't making a living, they are living.
This is Radiant Creators, and we have today on the show we have Lucho Poletti, and I do believe I've said that name correctly. Yes, and he does have a beard and amazing looking hair. I like it, and so Lucho Poletti, from his About page, is a visual artist and self-described propagandist who considers it his job to create art to push humanity to think more freely and live more freely. And also from his Twitter, the pinned post that I love up top says, "The art I create is my voice. My light I use to destroy darkness. What you focus on is what you feel, and what you feel is what you radiate. Focusing on problems leads to more problems, more darkness. Solutions are light. Focus on solutions and destroy darkness." And of course, while you're listening, check out Lucho's site, LuchoPoletti.com, LuchoPoletti.com. And well, first, I guess I'll just start. Since you definitely are fellow Radiant creators and you have a great looking studio, I can see some of your art there in the background. To those who are listening, definitely consider hopping on the video side and checking out, what happened here on the video side, because it's pretty entertaining. How you doing today, Lucho?
I'm doing well. Actually, I have my first intern that started like a little bit of part-time with me today, because I've really my passion's always been to create my art, and a lot of time and work goes into marketing, because this is my business, this is my living as well. So I have a guy who's going to be helping me with my website basically. So I have kind of I don't know, some people have commented kind of a powerful website, like a lot of images on there, like animations, and I have tons of products. But the problem is that selling, there's almost like a conflict of interest with my time in creating my art and actually publishing and selling it and all that. So I want to focus more on creating, and for that I'm kind of having someone help me a little bit. But yeah, so that was kind of my experience today, having that first day with the guy. And it felt really great. The guy's super excited, and I'm living in Mexico, so I'm able to actually provide a job for someone in kind of like a crisis of, the job market's not great. And kind of have this guy, happy about being able to work and help me create more. So, great day in regards to that. What about you?
Oh, today is good. I've been out running around doing stuff and having fun, and I had to get ready for this interview, which is I've been looking forward to. And life is just good. I think that's one of the things people will often ask, what'd you do today or how you doing? And I sometimes I have a hard time answering. I go, I'm always kind of blissed out. I don't
That's awesome.
I
That's
don't
that's a great way to be. We should have more people like you in the world.
Yeah, I mean, not that I'm always blissed out. I was pissed off several times today, but I got over it. you know. Well, I got to ask. So you're not originally from Mexico, or are you?
No,
Or
I'm not. I'm from Miami, Florida, actually. So I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. My mother's Cuban and my father was Argentinian, and they met. They're both first generation, I guess immigrants. They were both immigrants. So I was a first generation American, and I lived there most of my life. I graduated, college there. I did my master's degree in finance, which is like a curveball for a lot of people who see my profile now and the art I create. But eventually moved to Austin, Texas when I first became an artist full time. And from Texas, I ended up moving to Mexico to, and I had visited Mexico a few times, enjoyed the culture. my parents Americanized to the extent that I never learned Spanish fluently. So now I have. So in the past couple of years, it's been a couple of years now, living in Mexico mostly the whole time. And yeah, so I've been able to learn Spanish. I've established, like, you know, my Bitcoin art business, I guess you could say. And I've been really able to kind of like work on my skills, get back to painting. I'm doing like some oil painting now. I'm doing animation, learning like new software to make, like, you know, the digital art that is going on like in the Ethereum ecosystem as well. And it's been awesome. It's been really a great experience. It's colorful, you know, it's vibrant. It's really you know, the experience of living here has been really refreshing for me, and I've loved like every minute of it, actually.
Wow. And you spent some time in Austin. That kind of, I've only driven through Austin like once or twice, but I never really stopped except for gas. I was traveling across the country. But
Okay.
your time in Austin is kind of inspiring. It makes me want to go check it out because you gained some real artistic inspiration from Austin, like your time there.
Yeah, I did. Well, that's like I did well like in the corporate world when I was working there a bit, and then I just felt really like my inner child wasn't able to express themselves. Like I wasn't living my call. I wasn't using my innate gifts, which I think, like, you know, the first thing that my father acknowledged when I was like a young boy was like, wow, this he's drawing well, like those drawings are pretty good, you know. So I feel like I had like a natural inclination to the arts, to visual art. And I have like also somewhat of like a real big interest in psychology and in crowd psychology, and how that's been employed with art, with images to influence people and to you know, rally people behind certain causes and things like that. So when I decided that the corporate world wasn't for me, I decided that all these things that I've like kind of learned and been interested in, like that I feel that I know about the world and the way I see things, like my best voice, my loudest voice would be to use art, like to use visuals, to use images and words even in conjunction with those images, and really like use that as my voice. So that's why I started creating art, is because I had things to say, and the best way to say them was to create art about them.
And something that I can see in your art that to me really helps with the authenticity is that you know the corporate evil. I mean, I shouldn't call it evil, but I'll use that term, the corporate evil.
I won't stop you, man.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So the corporate evil, like you know it, and I think for since you like I've worked in the corporate world too, of course, and you know for the individuals that have worked there, like they get it, they know it, and that was an issue I've always had is that it just sort of drains your soul because you can feel it. You go, you know, I just know that I'm lending my life's energy, my life force to something that I mean, maybe it's not a landmine company, it's not that evil, but still, you just know it at its core, it it's just not doing anything good for the world. Your life energy is just getting absorbed by a machine that isn't doing good. And
Right.
when it really comes down to it, it's kind of doing bad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with you on that. I mean, even like in my last job, I remember as I started getting more and more involved in crypto, um, I I basically what I did was I started waking up really early and making art, because my insight was like, you know what? I'm giving these guys my best energies. And you know what? That best energy is probably like most potent in the morning. So what I started doing was like, I would just whip out my laptop like as soon as I woke up, and I would start making art like in my bed. And that's how I started this whole project that's focusing on, you know, Bitcoin and crypto art, is like I started just designing, you know, in the morning before I went to work, because I had this thing I knew in my head. I'm giving them my best energy. They're getting all my best energy. I'm just gonna start squandering a bit of that on my own dreams in the morning, you know? So that's like, I don't know if anyone's listening out there and you kind of feel the same way, like life hacks, you know, hashtag life hack, you know? So maybe try that.
Yes, I understand. Those early morning hours. It's like if you get up at 3:30 in the morning, um, you might not like it, but if you do it, that gives you, 4 hours. That gives you a lot of hours where you're very, very alive and you can work on. Maybe a person doesn't see the way out of the corporate scene, but just some creativity that you have an interest in, something that interests you, create something. And then who knows, you will probably find that your life changes so much that the corporate endeavor, which is draining your life force, just disappears on its own. And because I remember once I had at a corporate job, somebody said, something I like about you is, you always do your best. And I was like, close the door. I was like, listen, let me tell you a secret. I do not do my best here. Do you? But I'm really glad that it looks like it and I'm pulling it off. So thanks for the feedback.
Right.
Don't blow my cover. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't do my best here. Okay. Um, well, so now you have an intern. So you're seeing some success with your art, and we'll definitely dive deeper into that and a good number of things while we're talking. But people often, I hear a lot of artists, whatever medium it might be, whether it's music, paint, doesn't really matter what it is. There tends to be this notion that, it's hard to make a living as an artist. And I think really that just kind of translates to it's hard to make a living doing what you love. So it seems like you've made that breakthrough in making a living doing what you love. And so would you say that was, how do you think you got to where you are now, to where you are making a living, you're making money as an artist, and you're doing what you love? So you've kind of done what many people think is impossible, but you did it.
Yeah.
And maybe a tip or two, like how did you get, like just things that you could maybe put forth that are like, hey, here's something that I did, or something that happened along the way, a certain way I thought, even some maybe ways that things didn't work out at first, because you've gotten to a place, you've made a trail for people. Are there any little markers on that trail that you could kind of have us look for?
Yeah. I definitely have like a couple and I'll share them with you. I think like one of the main things, and maybe some people aren't going to like hearing this too much, but it is what it is that I had to ignore like I my mother is like my only living parent. So my father passed when I was a bit younger. And I think actually like I mentioned my father passing because that gave me almost like a more sense of independence where I was very rebellious in a lot of ways, and I was very independent, and I had to do what I had to kind of make my own way without like a lot of guidance from like a strong like male figure in my life. And my mom's been great. She's been great. But like all my family and many of my friends told me like when I first had the idea, I'm going to move to Austin because I feel like just being in Florida now, like, it's just, I feel this inertia and I want to go to a new environment and I want to try just doing what I love, and everyone told me no. And I even like let people into my ear enough that were like, why don't you at least get some interviews lined up? Why don't you at least do this? Why don't you at least? So it's like, okay, you want me to do, okay. And I remember doing that. I went to Austin, I interviewed for a job at a tech company. They offered me the job. I had a letter, offer letter in my paper when I moved there. And I was like, that's cool. I'm glad I did it. And you know what? That gave me like a little more confidence in myself to do the opposite of what everyone told me to do, So I decided to reject the job, reject the advice of my friends and family at that point, because I knew
That's
that I had like this little,
that's
child inside me that needed to express themselves and needed to do what they love to do. So I ignored their advice. And then the second part is that I went to Austin. I decided to become an artist. I even did everything I could. Like I had saved some money. I did everything I could to like, work on that skill, produce as much art as possible, isolate myself, which not everyone is like comfortable doing, but deliberately isolate myself from like everything, and just, you know, really like have these like, you know, I guess like Jungian psychology is like having this confrontation with your shadow, you know, integrating the shadow. Like you have to come to terms with who you are, what your values are, and what you really believe, what you really think, and what interests you when you don't have so much noise coming from the outside. So that helped me, you know, I guess kind of like bring those creative muscles back to life. It helped me like really come to in touch with who I am as a person. But the I guess the second or third part now is that I failed. I failed completely. I failed miserably. And that's what happened. Like I didn't make the money to make a living. I followed my dreams, and it didn't work out. So I suffered failure, and I also hit like kind of like a bottom of sorts where I ran out of like all my savings. I had no more runway. I had to go back and take another job. But that failure taught me so many things that, like, you know, if I wasn't willing to take the risk, I would have never learned those things. If I didn't fail, I probably would have never like experienced that failure that really, hey, if you don't learn and do the thing correctly next time, you're not going to succeed, and you know that. So you really want to do this again, you know? So that failure was instrumental for me. And like then I did the same exact thing. I went back to work, I saved money, I jumped ship again, and here I am today. So it's been over 3 years. You know, I'm still doing what I'm doing. My business is growing, and today, you know, I'm my my baby grew out of my hands, and I need help with it. You know, so I think like to kind of synthesize that is like listen to your inner voice. Like if you have that intuition about like who you are and what's going to make you happy, listen to it. Have enough confidence in it to even like disregard some advice that might not align with it. Take the risk. If you're going to fail, you know, you might have to suffer failure, and then from that you should know what it will take to succeed. So that was my experience, and what kind of like I think was the key to like where I am today.
Mm. I like how you mention, you know, your shadow work, because I think that definitely is something that gets in people's way. You know, of course, as you're speaking about, you know, Jung talking about the shadow, um, a lot of people they have some issues, and they just go, well, I'm an adult now, and I don't have to work on that. I mean, I think I think we see that. I think we see it quite a lot, and it seems like around somewhere between like 21 and 24, maybe around 23 is the average. A lot of people, they just become hard coded. They go, well, this is me, this is the world, this is how I see things, and you know, if it doesn't go along with that, if it doesn't match that, I just won't see it. You know,
Yeah.
and then maybe they're in a relationship, whatever, they may have kids, you know, their work life isn't great, their marriage isn't great, you know, I know I'm painting quite a picture, but just saying, but they go, well, I'm done, you know, I've got my career now, and I've got my 2 kids and a miserable relationship, I drive a minivan, and I'm happy. And you're like, no, you're not, you know. um you know, anyway, I'm happy. See, I'm smiling, can't you see? So I think it's rare, and why I pointed out is I think to realize that there's a mission I have, there's something I want to do, there's a passion I have, I want to create, you know, in whatever endeavor it is for an individual. And I think one of the things that does hang people up that you took on is, well, there were blocks that you had inside. They can be things that happened when we were 13 years old, when we were 6, when we were 21, all these events that happen in our lives. I mean, like ancestral trauma, family issues. And it seems like a little bit of self-therapy, a little bit of real therapy, what, you know, whatever method a person wants to do, reading Jung, um, whatever course it is, it will appear if a person wants to. I mean, how do you feel about that? Do you think that maybe not taking on that shadow work might be the real crux of what holds a lot of people from a more of a creative endeavor in life, more of a creative existence?
I do. I really do. I mean, I want to say that it's like integrating that is like really what leads to like the sort of rebirth, you know, because I honestly, I refer to it as a rebirth because I don't think I'm the same person that I was before. You know, like I had my persona, which was like only my ego, and it was attached to all my success and achievements in whatever I had done, you know, as an adult at that point, and was completely disconnected from, you know, everything that I was interested in as a child. And also I think like you kind of mentioned, like there's a lot of reasons and there's a lot of, you know, trauma and things that you have to come to terms with, you know. And I honestly, I don't think that it's going to be the same for everyone, and like what worked for me will work for everyone. But I do think that you need to integrate that. Like I used words like inner child because I feel like who I was as a child is very similar to who I am now, but who I was from, you know, high school to maybe mostly university, like college age to who I was in my career was actually a different person who had different values, different priorities, and everything. So it was almost like an integrating of my shadow or of, you know, who I was as a child. Some of the innate, you know, I don't know if certain talents, like people are naturally more predisposed towards or certain interests, but I really do believe that you need to go back and revisit things, and you need to think and really realize who you are more than, you know, who is this persona. This ego is like the outfacing thing, you know, the outfacing thing that you've seeking approval with this, you've gotten approval with this, you know. And that's what you want to keep growing. And if your ego is like, you know, the main thing in your life, like you're going to cling on to that. You don't want to sacrifice your social status. You don't want, like, there's certain things like I can tell you I sacrificed my social status, my whoever I thought I was, everything that I thought I was working, striving, aspiring towards. And that's hard. And I think that the reason that I did that was because I knew that, like, the true, like, I wasn't gonna find happiness, you know. But I don't know, man. I'm kind of ranting a little bit on this, but I really, to your point, I think that, you know, that is, for some people it's necessary. For some people, maybe they never disconnected from who they were as a child. Like, you know, maybe they always carried that with them and then never changed so much to seek approval or compete with others for material possessions or whatever drove us to deny our inner, you know, values and strengths and everything. Like, some people never parted with that, and, you know, that's great because maybe they move on to become the best of the best in the world in whatever they're creating. But some of us need to go through this type of thing, and I think that that relates with a lot of people because society nowadays is really rewarding, you know, more than creativity. Maybe it's rewarding other behaviors.
Yeah, it tends to reward obedience to the norm. And the thing is, when you take on a given role in society, that was the whole one of the big things in Star Wars, you know, the original Star Wars, where you have the stormtroopers and everyone is wearing that mask. There's no individuality. And Joseph Campbell, you know, and with George Lucas, he's the one who created Star Wars, right? I think so. They collaborated on that, and that was the whole idea of the masks, was that you take on a persona that society has given you. And the thing is it's safe because if you're a stormtrooper, you got your little white outfit on, you look around, oh, everybody's doing this, you know,
Yeah.
and the game is easy to understand and it's hierarchical, you know, somebody's in charge. And so to take that off as the individual, that's a difficult thing because um we talked to Herbal Jedi a few days ago, quite interesting, quite an amazing character. And he was talking about, it's really about connecting to your own inner authority, your own inner voice. that like inner authority. Like, how do you know what you really think or what you really feel or what you're supposed to do? What do you really think? Well, it comes from within. It comes from that inner authority. But I do think that inner authority, until one does that shadow work, puts a light on that, sees themselves, goes, oh, I don't like that. Oh, there's my childhood trauma. Oh, they go through all this stuff. And I mean, you do it throughout a lifetime. It isn't like you're ever really done.
Right.
But you get enough out of the way that you start to come to these like plateaus of success in life, as we do our shadow work. So I'm glad that you did it, because it's, it what you're doing is great. So I'm glad you did it, and I'm glad that came up as we've been talking, just because I think that's a huge sticking point. I really do. Is that people just go, no, I have my hangups and they're mine. I'm an adult now. No one can tell me. I've got my mask on.
Yeah.
I'm doing what I'm supposed to do in society, and but that's great. It's just that life won't have a certain fun to it, a certain creativity. That's just living a predefined path, So,
Right. Right.
yeah. And well, here's a question for you, since you're definitely working with crypto. Is Bitcoin a peaceful revolution?
Oh, of course, definitely. Yes, 100%. I mean, it really is like I feel that as I began to like start creating and following what really interests me, my tendency was always from the beginning to kind of like try to figure the world out, and this kind of ties into what we're talking about before, that kind of listening to that inner voice and letting it guide you to the next thing. Is that a lot of the things that, and also this thing about figuring out who you are, like, I'm sorry, figuring out the rules of life by 23 and then they're set in stone, is that I think that sometimes you find that what makes most sense doesn't agree with, if you read something new now, what might make most sense doesn't agree with what you learned before. And some people like that, they refer to it as cognitive dissonance, right? So some people are so uncomfortable with that, they just keep rejecting the new information. And for me, it was like part of, my rebirth was like reassessing everything that I've been taught and like what I've learned through life. And like, yeah, a lot of it still sticks, but a lot of it didn't stick. And like part of that is like what I learned in finance school. So they teach you like, okay, well, the central banking system was there to provide stability and, all this. And I don't believe that. I believe that the central banking system, I mean, it may be like an extreme way to explain it, but it could be considered a form of intellectual slavery because people don't understand it, and then that banking system is used to create this valueless money that you're mandated to pay your taxes. And people use words like Federal Reserve to trick you into thinking that this is like a government thing, but really it's a private institution. And it's world reserve currency, like as if it's backed by something, but it's really not backed by anything. It's just like you have to use dollars to trade oil. So there's certain things that I think like you reassess and you see it. And like with me, one of the things was media and how it manipulates people to believe certain things and pay attention to certain things. The other thing was always money. It was always the banking system as well. But Bitcoin came along, and then I was like, okay, now I have something here where before I began to become drained by, I'm creating this stuff, but as like it relates to the quote that I have posted on my Twitter, I'm trying to figure the world out. I'm finding this problem, that problem, this problem, that problem. And like my first art project became like, okay, let's show people what's wrong with the world. Let's show people how it's not true. Let's show people like, why this is bad. Let's show, and that's like, okay, cool. Like, okay, someone to sound an alarm, someone to wake people up, maybe it has its place. But like when I found Bitcoin and really understood past like the speculative, side of it where, if money printer go burr, number go up, like this type of stuff like that we like to meme about. But um, was I found a solution for like that problem that is so central to like, why do we have corrupt politicians? Why do we have, all these banks, predatory lending, like what, all this stuff, like why are these companies in power now? All this stuff kind of like seems to be around the banking system. So for me, that's how I saw things. And that's how I saw like this decentralized money movement. It's Bitcoin. It's all like Bitcoin is, the center of the decentralized. It's a weird way to put it, but Bitcoin is like the sun, of the decentralized movement. It's like it's the foundational layer. It's the thing. It's the brand that everyone knows about. It's the thing that you can reach the public with. Is the Bitcoin brand. Like Bitcoin is the one that's on the news. Bitcoin is the one that you can tell people like this is what's happening here, and this is how it's different. There's no inflation that the Fed can say I'll print infinite dollars to fix this problem. It's something that it's sound money. So these ideas, like, it requires education, like, for people to understand. But I was drawn to it because instead of diluting some of my efforts like across various topics, I found like something really important that like ties into my background, and I can say like I can sit here and create things, all types of different things that are supporting this movement and supporting Bitcoin mostly. And for me, that's like my solution that I can focus on. I can stay more positive about and really focus on, but okay, there's this problem, but just focus on it long enough to know what it is. And then you can preach the gospel of sound money and preach, why this is better, why this is good. And that's been the thing for me. And I think that also I could tie that into why I think that this go at it, I've been successful, because I'm focusing on something that I really think will make the world a better place.
And the word Bitcoin itself, I mean, it it represents something bigger than just Bitcoin. So what I like about saying, buy Bitcoin, or when we mention Bitcoin, it kind of covers the whole crypto market, but at the same time, it covers the crypto movement, decentralized finance, humanity just basically not fighting the bank, just stop using it. it
Yeah.
it represents a lot. So the word Bitcoin is a very powerful sigil, is what I like to think of it as, is because it's this sort of incantation, this sigil that's been created. And the more people who think of it or think about it, I've often thought, man, I should get a bumper sticker that just says "Buy Bitcoin," and I could drive around with this little sigil that would just start to like deconstruct society's structures that no longer are sound, that no longer work. Because I think that a real peaceful revolution, it's not one that really fights anything. The establishment might fight it, but it doesn't have to fight anything. Bitcoin, um, that's one of the great things about it, is it's not fighting anybody. It just is. And that's a beautiful aspect of it. Well, this year, 2020, it's 2020. It's a cool year. It's 2020. But it seems like there's so much going on in the world, a lot of global craziness, you name it.
Yeah.
And definitely we are seeing where the market is doing odd things, where you can see the Fed printing money. We can see global, countries having different financial situations. And when you look at the big market in general, like the S&P, the Dow, a lot of the indexes, you look at the yuan, how China's currency is doing. You go, none of this makes sense. It's like our market here is pumping right now, and I'm like, that does not represent anything tied to reality whatsoever. It just
Right.
doesn't. And I think that the beautiful thing with Bitcoin is it does represent reality, and it just represents something very very sane about reality, especially reality that I could say the people of the world envision. it really is a visionary, beautiful thing, Bitcoin. I guess I'm kind of rambling also, but rambling is good. That's why we're here. So this year, 2020, a pivotal year, so much going on. What do you think is going to shake out with Bitcoin? And one of the reasons I ask that is I'm positive about Bitcoin. I'm positive about the peaceful revolution. Now, many people will say it's manipulated. Yes, whales do own, as we call them, big holders of Bitcoin, do manipulate the market, and they do play their games, and they do make money. But I think 2020 is a year where we're going to see, well, has Bitcoin just basically been owned by too much big money that actually controls too much of it for it really to be a currency for the individual? Or we're going to see really, who owns the majority? This is a big year for Bitcoin, and I'm seeing a lot of manipulation. But I just have a feeling that I don't think that the whales, the banks, the financial houses, the extremely wealthy people, I don't think that they can manipulate Bitcoin forever, because eventually it will just have too much value. It's almost like they're trying to manipulate it, but even with their manipulation, Bitcoin is kind of freeing itself. Anyway, I don't even know how to pose that question, but how do you think 2020 is going to play out for Bitcoin? Are the whales going to continue to own it and manipulate it? Or is Bitcoin just too damn wily?
Yeah, I think that there's like, I think I'm on the same page with you in regards to this, because I see that the people who buy Bitcoin are like, and a lot of the culture that, the community has promoted successfully is like this sort of like this hodler of last resort, like someone who they're going to see this thing go all the way to whatever price. I mean, maybe some of those might like look at, okay, if we get to the last market cycle and it goes under that, maybe it's dead. And like you'll have people that like at certain points capitulate, but I think that like a lot of them truly are of last resort. Like they're not going to sell. They're not going to sell. They don't have um, their Bitcoin in hot storage ready to sell. Like it's in cold storage. They have no intention to sell. So I think accumulation and like, eventually the supply shock of like the halving will actually have its effect. But I think there's like, maybe some people have some inventory they're selling on the market, maybe, the manipulation is going extra hard to suppress Bitcoin while the stock market is just irrationally going up and making highs and stuff. So, I think like there's definitely a lot of manipulation. A lot of people would have expect prices to move up higher sooner, but it's hard to say. My outlook's positive, and my outlook's positive on even other currencies. Like I don't spend my time promoting Ethereum, but I think I like a lot of the stuff that's happening with Ethereum now. And for example, like the move to proof of stake for Ethereum and Ethereum 2.0, maybe it's not a bad idea. Maybe that's going to help Ethereum. But Bitcoin is like, that's my focus. That's usually what I'm here to talk about. And I think that the post halving, like run up is going to happen. I think we're kind of clinging on to some like really like trying to suppress the market at this point, but Bitcoin's going to do good, and the rest should follow, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that one thing that really helps Bitcoin is every individual who buys Bitcoin, because ultimately there is liquidity out there, and when individuals buy it, I've always been a big fan of dollar cost averaging. I mean, there's so many things you can do, so many things you can be involved in, but one thing I like about Bitcoin is I feel that every Satoshi, every little piece of a Bitcoin that is purchased, it really is a statement of optimism. It really is you're buying stock in the peaceful revolution. And so it's really more than a currency. Its value is great if it, continues to rise or whatever. I mean, it seems like Bitcoin has many values on many different levels, but just like we buy into a company we believe in, people buy stocks. Well, if that's your thing, but gosh, I really feel like every Satoshi, like I was mentioning, it is buying optimism. It's just a statement of, I'm optimistic about the future. I believe in a peaceful revolution. I just believe. It's this very sane, level-headed optimism. I think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, even like this, if you can see like this poster that I have up here with the ballot box, is like that kind of like relates. It says cast your vote for a new money system. And like the image, I don't know if I can put my laptop like a little closer, but the image basically is
Yeah.
like it's a dollar bill going inside a ballot box that has like, it looks like a little circuit board and the Bitcoin brand name on it. And I think that really is like, there's this concept that like I think like maybe consumer brands use or something, that's like, oh, these consumers are voting with their dollars for vegan options now, or whatever it is. It's like the consumers do at some point dictate the market. And I think Bitcoin's like that too. It's like, well, me personally, I don't use the credit system anymore. I use like, I have to use some stuff. I use PayPal for my website to accept fiat, but I'm like a Bitcoin guy living in Mexico right now. So like I'm not I'm like using cash, I'm using Bitcoin, like I'm living my life and doing, what I think I should do to really like, I'm an example of the message that I'm spreading. I'm voting with what were my dollars. It's basically in Bitcoin, like, it's in Bitcoin and it's in, Ethereum, and if I need to pay my bills, I use cash. Like that's what I do. So and the Ethereum is basically because I sell crypto art. That's based on like Ethereum blockchain is where you make NFTs, and usually I convert most of that to Bitcoin anyways. But like that's where my money is. So if I'm not taking out new debt, I'm not pumping this system in any way, I have essentially voted with my economic energy.
That's true, because it's not only buying Bitcoin that helps to buy stock in the peaceful revolution. It's using it, and so a lot of people are very good at the hodl of last resort and just holding it. But yes, truly use it. Buy something.
Right.
It's like I use my I do trade a good deal for a living in crypto. Only it's my only thing I'm interested in. But I feel that there's an importance to doing something good that, like, to me, like right now I just trade in crypto, and that's kind of how I'm getting by, making a living. And I've been doing it for a while, and I feel like I can feel so much better about life because I go, i'm I make my living doing something that I believe in, that I don't think is hurting the world, but making it a better place. Like all the ills out there, I go, well, there's so many things wrong. It's true, but I just think this is a wholly good thing. And and I go, and then like when I get my profits and put them on the BitPay card, and like then I can go and go to Trader Joe's and and buy some food. But I go, man, I just feel better than I have like almost ever in my life, because I'm not making money in a supporting what I truly believe is kind of evil, because nothing's really kind of evil. If it's kind of evil, then it's not good, you know, at the very least.
Right.
Oh, it's just nice. Well, you mentioned that you're like a propagandist. I like that, the way it says, a visual artist and self-described propagandist. Of course, crypto propagandist. But one thing about your art, I've mentioned like sigils since we've been chatting. Sigil being like a magical symbol that means something, and it really
Mhm.
seems like your art is a sigil, and when people see it, it starts to sink in. I mean, is that part of like you really seem like a positive crypto sigil propagandist?
Yeah. Well, I guess I would say that yes, I think that that's what my art's doing. That's the effect it's had. And I think that it's almost like the concept of phenomenology is that the more something is repeated and the more something appears in different places, and like the more I don't know, like different takes I have, on my imagery, the more people see it, the more people recognize it, the more, and it's all like, you can't look at anything that I've done and not see that it's about Bitcoin, and I use like an icon, like my own icon, that's, I'm some sort of like my own version of a Guy Fawkes mask that I've appropriated. Now I've, like redone the art on it and created it and called it the Satoshi mask. So now I have like, I'm putting out this like, anonymous, vessel of like whoever created Bitcoin into like the public eye, and shipping thousands of stickers around the world that people are, sticking on things. And like, this is what I want to do. Like, I could focus on making only fine art. I could focus only, oh, sorry, I only do prints for $500, please. Like, I could try to do that and do that, but I want this to be in your hand. I want this to be on a wall. I want this to be behind the stop sign with the rest of the stickers in the street, as long as you're not like, going around actually doing destructive graffiti with it. Like, I want it to be in as many places as possible. And I think that I use the words repeating the message, repeating the image, but like, all my body of work is like, it's all different art, but I'm just trying to say the same thing in different ways, is really what I'm doing. So I think that if you've observed that, for example, that you feel that, after seeing the art and seeing, it appear in different like manifestations, different creations that I've made, and you feel that way about it, maybe it's because I intend it to be that way. Like, I'm investing a lot of my time into doing that, my life into doing it. So I want it to be effective. I want that message to be, amplified by my art, and hopefully it's working out so far.
Mm. Well, it's like the pinned tweet on your Twitter. I love the way it says, what you focus on is what you feel, and what you feel is what you radiate. And it's something I like about Bitcoin, and of course it's reflected in your work, is that you can't hide the nature of something from somebody who can feel. And I think that, Bitcoin, when you feel it, it just feels good. You go, this is good, and so it's great to help to be a part of that. Definitely, just to go, oh well, I can buy a little bit of this and I feel good. I feel I'm reaching out and I feel, this is all good. This is good, you know. Oh, oh, you still there? Oh, mm.
Hey, Craig,
Oh,
Craig,
there you are. There you are.
you know what happened? I was on, sorry
That's
if
okay.
I'm like interrupting the stream now, but I was accidentally still tethering off my phone, and I just heard it die, and that's when, so I switched to my Wi-Fi. Sorry about
Oh
that.
no, perfect. It's all good. Oh, yeah. No, I was just rambling on about just, you can feel like with your work, when you see it, cast your vote, Bitcoin. It's a really positive vibe, and I think it really, you are helping to amplify the positive vibe of Bitcoin in your sigils, as I will call them, because at the core of what your art is focusing on, it's just good. So, people are probably listening going, what's this guy rambling on about? But it's hard to put to words. But you're focusing on a good vibe, and then you're helping that vibe radiate out further and become more clear. And it's just putting this constant like positive vibe in everyone's mind who sees it, even if they don't exactly understand it. Now they are radiating their resonating Bitcoin energy.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah, I think like, and the message, like, I've simplified my message in a way where like I have some work that's more complex, and I have like even used sometimes like more advanced language, or longer copy, or just like a design that's completely visual and nonverbal. But I've simplified like a lot of it to like, here like this right here is like this is my sigil, right? If you want to if you want to refer to it that way, which I will agree with you. And this thing is in so many different, like, I mean, I just, here's another laptop that's got it on it, you know, like this thing is all over the place. If you see some, like one of these art pieces behind me, like you'll see it even in a painted piece up there, you see it there. I'm painting it, I'm creating it digitally, augmented reality masks with like the same thing. And then, you know, the actual verbal message can be boiled down to Bitcoin is better money. And I've repeated that like many times. And like, you know, that's why I think like that's what people who are on the outside need to see. Because, you know, maybe it's too much for them to understand how like some markets and the bank and, okay, if you tell them Bitcoin's better money, and then other people are telling them, and then it's showing up more and more and more, but why? But the dollar's king. But why is Bitcoin better money? And then, you know, maybe they're gonna go and try to find their answer for that, and maybe they're gonna find the right answer if that's the question they're looking for.
It's true, because Bitcoin will sell itself as individuals gain knowledge of it. So whatever can spark that interest, you know, cast your vote, Bitcoin, better money. Oh, what does that mean? Well, I think that if it truly did spark an interest for them, then they'll just find a way. It'll appear, you know, because if they were in vibrational harmony with seeing cast your vote for better money, then obviously it's a path that they're on. So it's great that you have these little waystones out there that people can see and they go, oh, I'll go that way. Oh, and like you're helping to lead them on a path that they're already on. You're making their path a bit more clear.
Yeah, definitely. I think even like part of, you know, taking things that exist in like the popular zeitgeist and kind of like making them into something Bitcoin, making them into something that's my creation, taking it further, even like the mask thing. It's like, I think that, you know, I understood when I first started, because I laid a claim on that mask like very, very early. And like no one really messes with it because like they respect that like I started doing it. And like now, you know, the Bitcoin mask with that looks like the Guy Fawkes mask is something that I'm doing. But like people see that who are on the outside, and I've always considered myself focused, like I'm almost like a ambassador for Bitcoin. Like I'm outward facing more than I am doing like this inside, like, oh, here's only something that you'll understand. Like I'll put that Easter egg in like in an art piece for, you know, to show like, you know, the community that I'm thinking about them, and I want them to see that, and only them. But my art is an ambassador for the Bitcoin movement. It's outward facing. And like if they're gonna look at that mask and be like, well, why does it have a Bitcoin logo on it? Oh, because the founder's anonymous. Oh, what's it, Satoshi? Oh, Satoshi. You know, and like, you know, it's gonna get more attention. It's gonna get more eyes than something that's completely foreign.
No, it absolutely is. Well, so you are an artist, of course. Do you what mediums are you creating in? So, of course, digitally, and you're also painting. Do you play any instruments? Do you do music also, or?
Yeah, so I was in bands like throughout my teenage years. I picked up bass guitar and like I was okay at it, and I fiddled around. And my mother was like very, how would you say, like a charismatic Christian. So I actually found an outlet to learn these things in like churches. So I would play with the church, and then drums ended up becoming like the real. Um, I had like some anger problems actually, and enough so that my mother sent me to anger management classes and everything. And she would try send like, well, you're going to do cross country now, and like trying to like get my energy out so I don't like break stuff. Like I was an angry person. Like anyone that knows me now, if I tell them, like, you get to know me and I tell you like, hey, I was an angry guy and my mom sent me to anger, like, no way. You know, like people don't even believe it because like I don't ever lose my anger. Like I don't ever become angry or like lose control of that anger or anything. But drums was like the first like, oh, this outlet like really worked. you know, like bass was cool, but I started playing drums. So I played like in the context of like churches, like ended up like making it like sort of like a job. Like they would like, you know, I'd go and play and like they pay me money to play. And I was in like into the post-hardcore, like kind of like screamo band type of things when I was in early like college years. So we had like our own band and we'd play like local shows and stuff. So drums was like it for me. I still have like my entire live kit with cymbals and everything in South Florida. Didn't bring it with me to Mexico, unfortunately, but yeah, I love music, man. I'm a musician for sure. What about you?
Oh, I like playing guitar and actually tabla. You know, I love the tablas, the two drums, the Diane and the Bayan, the Indian drums, the two,
Oh, okay.
you
Yeah.
know, and so, and I kind of took that on because sometimes you can get bored with what everyone has done and everyone is doing. So the guitar, I mean, it, I do enjoy it, but what I really enjoy is improvisational. I don't really want to play what's already been played. That kind of just gets, it's neat, especially for learning, but it does get boring. And what I liked about the tablas was I had absolutely no context for the music whatsoever. And so it was like playing something from a different planet. The rhythms are completely different. So it was great to just do something that I didn't know about, that wasn't common to me, that actually was new.
Right.
You know, where
Yeah,
hmm?
that's cool. It's like it's almost like an individual endeavor. As like because when you play in a band, like I always played music in context of bands, so I never was a songwriter. You know, like I like writing, but I never wrote songs. I never truly created musically more than I performed. Actually, as I come to think of it, so my creativity, like as an individual, has always come out in the form of art, visual art. Sorry.
I like it. Well, and I know we've had you here for a little while, but just another question or two. I don't want to keep it too long, but when your art is flowing, life is flowing. It seems like when our creative endeavors are flowing, then our life is flowing. And I feel like that's something I need to actually get back to. Is the guitar's been kind of sitting there, and the tablas have been sitting there, and I haven't been playing. And I know that ultimately life would work better if I just screw it. I'll just force myself to play. You know, we can't always wait until we have the creative desire, feeling, flow, or the energy is right. We have to kind of sometimes just have a bit of regimentation and just go, I'm going to get up, you know, early in the morning and play for, you know, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, you know.
Definitely.
So does it seem like to you that if we insist on doing something creative that interests us, whatever that might be, for everyone, everyone is an individual, everyone's a little different. I know there'll be some people that say, well, I'm not creative. Yes, you are. I guarantee there's something that interests you. Um, and it seems that we need to have those creative outlets, those creative creations, and just do them, even if it's an aspect of just disciplining ourselves, because it's almost like the energy in our being, our expression, our physical manifestation on this earth, everything about us is just a bit stuck. You know, we're not flowing. And sometimes what it really takes is just to, you know, draw, write a journal. That's creative. We need to cultivate ways to allow our divinity to manifest on this planet outside of just like generic things like mopping the floor. I like mopping the floor, but it's not really creative. You know, for
Uh-huh.
me, like my little guitar is, for me, writing is, for me, even just doing the show is. There's so many aspects of creativity. If we just put a little bit of effort into finding what is it that excites us, and then just being like, just grit your teeth and do it even when you don't feel like it sometimes. You'll know when
Yeah.
you're stuck. You'll know when you're in a rut, and you got to get out of that rut.
Right. Totally. Yeah. What I would say to that is that, and also potentially like a book recommendation for you or maybe anyone listening that relates to what you're going through. Because I came through like something recently myself too, where I actually like, because I consider myself like, what is the pro artist? Who's the professional? It's someone who sits down to make art every day. Like, it's your occupation. It's what you're doing. So like, there's this book, The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. Are you familiar?
Yes, I actually have it. The War of
Oh,
Art. Yes,
okay. So you've read it already.
I have. But you know,
Okay.
it's been a while. If I read it again, it would be new.
Yeah. It's really like the first time I read it, it really just hit me. And I was like, yeah, resistance. Like all his examples about how resistance manifests itself, all the different things that we do to just resist sitting down and creating something, and recently for me, I had like a kind of like a bit of a different issue, which was more like more overthinking over. I have the idea and now I need to think about how to make the idea better, and then it's not good enough, and then I had this cycle that went on in my head. But I still sat down and made something and threw it away. I still sat down and painted something, and maybe I didn't take any photos or even make it about Bitcoin at that point. Like I just needed to sit down and do it, and like I learned that, and that kind of like helped me as like I went through my own mental issues that basically kept me away from like being communicating with people online. Like I withdrew socially from social media, which is like a new phenomenon or something, but I kept creating, and like that's just because I was like, well, if I don't just create something, then I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. It's like, even if I throw it away. So I think like maybe that's part of it. Like I think you already like you have that. You're like, you're saying here now, like even if I don't feel creative and I don't have like the idea, like maybe I should just do it, like maybe I should just grab the thing and start, grab those drums and start tapping them, grab the guitar and start strumming it, and or maybe just do something else, because expression comes in many different forms. So if it's writing, maybe try singing, like try something different that makes you uncomfortable. I think all that helps a lot. Like even for me, as I'm focused on creating visual art, painting has been huge for me lately, because it's not what I've done, it's not what I've sold, it's not what I have based what I'm doing now, my art project on. But painting has taught me a lot of things that I think, is going to help me create different digital art in the future as well. So I think that just, getting out of your comfort zone, using different outlets to create and all that, pretty much is the solution.
Yeah, a new medium always has a lot to teach us. I think that's uh, for me with guitar. Every guitar has something unique about it that you'll create from. So there's really like no guitar you can pick up that won't spur some new creativity, because it has a sound, it has a shape, it has a resonance. It's just, so it's kind of fun. I think that's one of those things is yeah, just like you're saying, just try a new medium, because there's something there that you haven't created, but it's there. It's like waiting for you,
Yeah,
and
and
it
and
really is.
something else, Craig, that I think is like something I'm realizing lately too, is that if people who are like creating and sharing what they're creating with the world, like for me, I realized like really recently as well, is that talk to like connect with other creators more, because like the other day here in Guadalajara, I went to a house where various painters live, and I see their paintings, and I was inspired like hugely by them. But I'm getting to talking to this guy, I'm like, yeah man, I started painting this thing a while back, and I've left it, and I just feel like it's like you almost feel like a creative failure in a way when you start something and you can't finish it, you can't carry it out, you can't complete it. And this guy, and I'm like gawking at this painting of his, I'm like, dude, how long did this take you? It's just like a huge painting with all this detail. And he's like, man, I started that 3 years ago. And I was like, 3 years? And he's like, yeah, and I didn't even touch it for like a year at least. And I was like, oh man, this guy, like, he's making all these paintings that are like inspiring me, and like I'm seeing that he's gone through the same thing, and like, kind of just talking to people who are going through the same thing as well, for me at least, has been helpful, seeing like, people, sometimes creativity is like that. You have this block and you need to go, elsewhere, and maybe it'll loosen itself when you go explore a different medium or paint something new, and you can return to what you left, and maybe then you have the idea to finish it off, or you just brushed up on the skill that you needed to really feel confident to complete it. So I think there's nothing wrong with starting something and, leaving a break. It's tragic if for some reason you're never able to complete it, but there's no failure about, leaving something undone for a bit and coming back to it later, in my opinion.
I think the creativity continues. That's the thing. It's just that we're not seeing it. It's happening within us. It's almost like it just takes a while for the creativity to go through some process. You're figuring something out. So I've had to come to peace with that. With music, for instance, is I haven't played in a while, but as I begin to play again, I've had to just realize that the creativity was always happening. I never really stopped. It's not a way of looking at it, but something needed to take place that just wasn't physical. It wasn't the way that I think it should. You know what I mean? Like, even though you might not work on the painting for a year, you did. The creativity was always taking place. It just needed a year to happen before you touched it again.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it has been great having you on the show. Thanks so much for hopping on. And I love that we have a book in common, The War of Art. That actually, it's a small book. Yeah. I'll link to it in the show notes. It's also on Audible. It might even be on YouTube out there. I will link to it for people, because that book, it's a bit roughhouse. It's a bit fun, but definitely I think that is an inspiring book that definitely can help one get out of a rut. Or also, maybe if a person is listening saying, I'm not creative, I think you might find that if you get The War of Art, you'll find some way that you are, then you'll find more ways and more ways and more ways. I think that we also have a terribly bad habit in our culture, maybe the whole world, of thinking that creativity is grander. Like, it has to look like this. It has to look like that. Like, for me, one thing with music, I was really, one of my hang-ups was kind of hiding behind perfection or hiding behind technical skill. I thought I have to know all of these things or else I'm not really there. And then I realized I was just stuffing arbitrary knowledge into my mind that really didn't have much value. I wasn't focusing on, what do I really think? What do I really want to create? And so, we're all going through our processes. They never end. Thank you so much, Lucho, for being on the show. And I also wanted to mention, Lucho made an amazing show logo for a little project I have called Bitcoin Daily View. And Lucho has done work for others that we know, and they've just absolutely loved it. So if you do have graphic projects, people can look you up, right? Because you do work for people, and we've seen examples. It's badass. You got a project, you got a business logo or something. Lucho does. I mean, next level amazing stuff. You want a sigil that will just like shake the world? Well, Lucho's your guy.
Thanks,
your
Greg.
Business sigil. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We'll get this up and I'll send you a link to it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was great chatting. Thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, it was great. Thank you.
Okay. See you, Craig.
See ya.
You are listening to Radiant Creators, a collaborative project composed of people whose passion, purpose, and dedication requires forging their own unique path of empowerment and livelihood. A radiant creator isn't making a living, they are living.